Hello, my name's Katrina and you're welcome to the Irish Mommy channel. Today we're taking a tour of the raised bed vegetable garden and greenhouse area, a space that feeds my family of 5 most of the year round. So I'm around here now at the vegetable garden, just at the side of the house and the back of the house. You can see the greenhouse there in the distance. You know, I like to dress up the space as well. I have this nice I think it's called a moon gate as the entrance to the garden. We do have climbing roses on either side. I've had to cut them back now this year already. They were going a bit wild. Not really getting very tall, but hopefully they will, of course, grow right the way across and meet at the top. That's the plan anyway. Right, let's bring you into the wild autumn vegetable garden. So at the very front I have two small little square raised beds, and I have blueberries planted in those. I also have those filled with acidic soil, of course, because blueberries only like acidic soil. And there are some blueberries on it, and we have picked some this year. Let's see if I can actually find some on it at the minute. Oh yeah, there's one in there. Nice size blueberries, and there's plenty on it. Just can't really maybe see them very well in there. There's another one there. The camera might not show them up very well. A lot still to ripen, and they do seem to ripen quite slowly. Now obviously the plant has actually, you can see from this brighter green growth, these little stalks coming out here, brighter green stalks, that's actually all new growth from this year. It really has put on a lot of size this year. I think I would have planted that maybe in the winter of 21 or early spring. So I did get a few blueberries last year. It didn't grow that terrible much, but then first year of a plant, it tends to concentrate on its roots and try and root itself into the ground. So it makes sense that this year it's growing a little bit better on the top. And of course, well, they say the first year it sleeps, the second year it creeps, and the third year it leaps. So I'm expecting really good things from it next year, if it has put on so much growth this year in its second year. A little bit closer up on the rose, nice white climbing rose. Again, I'm wondering if I've chosen the right variety. It doesn't seem to be growing terribly fast, but maybe I'm just getting impatient. I have nasturtiums at the front here as well. I wasn't sure how they would grow, considering that I have it full of acidic soil. And actually, just to mention that this is one of the healthiest roses I have, and I'm thinking possibly the acidic soil is what's really helping it. But the nasturtiums are doing well despite the acidic soil. And again, they'll self-seed and they'll just probably keep coming back year after year. The same on the other side, another climbing rose, another blueberry. This side actually hasn't produced blueberries. It may have one or two, but very, very little. And again, it might be to do with its position, maybe, and getting the morning sun and stuff. And another nasturtium there, which is being strewn around by the wind. And plenty of nettles in the background to attract the ladybirds. So you can see from here, I have 10 raised beds. They're 6x3s. And they produce lots of food for me throughout the year. Some of them will grow throughout the winter as well, but of course I have the greenhouse to add to that as well. And I actually also rent space in a polytunnel. I share a polytunnel at a local community garden. I share a polytunnel space with 2 other people, so I have plenty of growing space and no excuse for not having vegetables all year round. So take you to the first bed here on the left, and this is celery. really starting to take off now. It'll soon be ready, actually, probably another 3 or 4 weeks. It'll be ready for harvest. Try and get in close so we see how well it's coming on. So you can see down there, coming on quite well. Stalks just need to fatten up another little bit, and it will get maybe even double the height that it is at the minute. And again, this isn't, you don't see on the celery you buy in the shop the amount of foliage that's actually on the top. That's usually just wasted, but there's no waste here. Stock, vegetable stock, soups and everything, all great for using up your celery leaves. The next thing in here, this is a mishmash of everything in this bed really. There's stuff self-seeding. So this is coriander, self-seeded from last year. I do have parsnips in here. So this is the parsnip foliage here. Don't have a whole pile of them growing. I'd say there's just about 3 short rows growing, but it be's enough to keep us going over the winter. When we have nothing else, or very little else producing, we end up with parsnips. I don't harvest them until around Christmas. They've usually started to sweeten up at Christmas after getting a few tight frosts. The other main vegetable I have growing in here is leeks. See them this side much better. Starting to fatten up, still a good way to go, but again, another 3 or 4 weeks and they'll be well on their way. This is wild rocket. So wild rocket is one of those plants you only have to plant it once. If you let it go to flower and go to seed, it'll just keep coming back every year. This is the 3rd year it's grown back. And it still tastes good. If you harvest the smaller leaves, it'll taste lovely. And just cut it back and it'll re-sprout from the rhizomes it has in the ground, as well as spreading its seed around the place. So a bit of a wild card, wild rocket. Back over here now to the bed on the right, the gate. This is all onions. They're all in varying stages of development. So some are grown from seed, some are grown from onion sets. These are red onions in here. I think I have two rows maybe of red onions, and it's plenty to keep us going. So you can see them starting to bulb up down there at the bottom. They're coming on nicely, but they'll still take another while before they're actually mature enough. But they're getting there. Here in the middle is probably slightly bigger onions, and these are white onions. See, can I get in here? Not much bulbing action on them yet. Again, they were planted later than the red onions. It might have been early June before I planted them, which is quite late for onions because generally they like to be well established before the shortest day of the year, and then after that they put their energy into bulb production and increasing the bulb size. So not getting much of them this year in this bed, but they're coming on. They'll get there eventually, and I'll have onions to eat. They may not just be very big. And over here is my strawberry bed. This is its 3rd season producing. This was the peak season really. It will produce again next year, and if you keep it really well fed, it will still produce another crop next year. But you can see here it's starting to send off these runners, so I will be rooting these runners now this year. I do have another strawberry bed out in the wild field area, which you'll see shortly, but I'll be taking runners from these plants this year. They're really only starting to send them off now. You see, the later it gets in the season, the more likely they are to send them out. You can see another few there. So I'll have them runners then to plant out next year in another bed. So I kind of always have about 3 beds of strawberries running, one in its first year, one in its second year, one in its third year, because the peak production year for strawberries is year 3. Over here I have a bed sown for autumn winter production. Now they've just been sown about maybe 2 weeks ago. I think it could have been 2 weeks ago yesterday. So you can see them starting to come up here. These are Swedes growing here. So I've planted about 5 in a row, 5 or 6 maybe, several seeds per hole, and then I will thin them out to just 1 seed. When they just mature and get a little bit bigger, I'll thin them out to 1 seed per hole, and hopefully they'll produce plenty for me come the winter. I will also be sowing more in the polytunnel, of course, where they'll be more protected, so better chance of production from the polytunnel. And it's only about, so I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows of about 5 in each row, so about 20 Swedes from there, and the rest is sown with beetroot, which is all starting to come up as well. It's a bit higgledy-piggledy. The dog decided to jump up and dig in this bed after I had the seeds sown, so she spread them all around the place, but they're still coming up. Third bed down here, another mishmash bed, and I like to do that. I like to interplant with as much or as many different plants as I can fit in, really looking for maximum production out of small spaces here. So I have 2 courgette plants. One is a green courgette. Let me see, can we see one there? There's the courgette producing there. And that'll be ready for picking this evening. If any of you are familiar with courgettes, they grow super fast, and you can end up with doorstops if you don't get them harvested quick enough. A yellow one over here producing. Get in through all this foliage, you can see the yellow courgettes there. Loads of courgettes producing there in varying stages of growth. So one there looks like it's ready to pick now. I have some chard and I think it's Lolla Rosa lettuce interplanted here. It's probably in a bit too much shade with this courgette, but it can still get some plants coming out, or some harvest out of it as well. So there's the chard stuck down in there, and the Lolla Rosa's in there at the back. Nice red lettuce. Dill here growing for my cucumbers for the pickles. Just coming to flower now, which is the stage I like to use it at for cucumber pickles or gherkins. Another one this side. Again, another pollinator attractor as well to the garden. And a beautiful, beautiful smell. Peas in the back ready for pulling out. These were planted in early spring. If you go around the back we can see them better probably. Yeah, so you can see pea pods here still producing. Some of them are getting a bit tatty, so I'll soon be pulling those plants out. And I'll move the trellis to a different bed and sow more peas for, well, I'll probably sow them during the winter for them to come up and have an early spring harvest. This side is green beans, well, yellow French beans actually. Not had great luck with green beans this year. I think the problem was my seeds. Last summer I kind of left a lot of my seeds in the greenhouse, where obviously they must have got too hot. I didn't realise it would affect them so badly, but I'm learning my lesson this year. And actually a lot of seeds are affected. These green beans in particular. I don't know how many times I've sown green beans. I have 7 plants in here. They haven't really produced much yet, but they're just getting to the stage there. You can see lots of flowers on them, lots of nice pink flowers. So everywhere there's a flower there'll come beans. A few little small beans there. You can see one there starting to come up. Any more? Yeah, a few more over here. Let's see them. Get the leaves out of the way. So there is a few of them dotted over the plants. It'll be slow to start, but they will come on and produce probably maybe till the middle of October if we get away without frost. But they're very frost tender, so as soon as we get a frost they'll be gone. 2 more beds here now on either side that are planted up for winter, both of them with carrots. And again, they were sown the same day as the other bed of the Swedes and beetroot. And they're just starting to poke through. I was starting to think these seeds were affected as well by leaving them in the greenhouse. You can just see little sprouts starting to come up there. There's a few of them dotted all over, very small at the minute, but they will come on. And I need to get these 2 beds covered with a Enviromesh to keep out the carrot root fly. I had some damage last year with my carrots that grew on into the winter, and I don't harvest them, by the way. I only harvest them as I use them. I leave them in the bed, and I don't find that they get particularly damaged by frost, and it just saves the whole hassle of trying to store them in sand or in the fridge. I definitely wouldn't have space in the fridge to store that many carrots, so the best way to store them is in the actual raised beds themselves. The foliage can be cut off on the top, and they'll store perfectly well over winter. If it was particularly hard winter, you could cover them over with straw, but last year was a nice mild winter, so we got away with it, apart from the carrot root fly. This bed the same, sown with carrots. They are starting to peek through, and they will get a good size before we start getting the cooler weather. I mean, we have till probably mid-October really before we start getting cold weather, and maybe even the end of October. So a good 8 to 10 weeks of growing time left. So the last bed on this side, one that's ready to be cleared out. This was my summer lettuce, as you can see. It's like I'm growing Christmas trees in the bed here, all getting ready to go to seed. You can see they're even starting to flower on the top there. As soon as the hot weather comes, and we have had a lovely spell of very hot weather there recently, and it just sent them crazy to go to flower or to bolt. 2 parsley plants in here as well, 2 flat leaf parsley. They'll grow on through the winter. I'll probably be pulling them out next summer. They'll probably go to seed next summer. Parsley is a biennial plant, so it'll send up flowers in its 2nd year. Once it flowers, the flavour doesn't be as good, so generally throw it out after the 2nd year. Just the remnants of some spring onions growing in here as well. So everything apart from the parsley will be cleared out of here, and I will re-sow for some winter leaves. And over this side, well, these are the show onions. So these are a variety called Exhibition, and I grew them from seed that I actually saved myself. So it was a lesson in patience to save seeds from onions. Another biennial plant doesn't flower till the 2nd year, so I left 3 onions in the ground over winter, let them flower the following year, and at the end of year 2, which was last year, I harvested the seeds from them, and I sowed them then this January, and this is what they've turned into. Still have plenty of seed left, so I'll be sowing more of those again now this January coming. I love the size these onions get. Huge big onions, not very strong flavour, more mild flavour, but they're absolutely delicious, and saves all the peeling of small onions when you get these nice big ones. I'll just put my hand up there for reference so you can see how big these are getting. Hope you can see that there. Huge big onion. Some of them the tops are starting to fall over. They'll soon be ready to harvest. I'll probably bring you along for the harvest. Some spring onions just here at the end. They look so disappointing compared to the other onions. but they're all being harvested at the minute. And so into the greenhouse. Because I have the polytunnel space, I mostly only grow tomatoes here for fresh eating, cherry tomatoes, and just a few plants of larger tomatoes. So these are a red pear variety. Really loving the sunshine we're getting today. Almost ripe here, just a few with green shoulders here, but they'll soon be ready for harvesting. Closer there on the bottom to harvesting. So I have been harvesting a few in the last few weeks from these. Again, they've loved the hot weather. For the most part, in the really hot part, they were starting to drop blooms. So I would have lost some production from that, but when it cooled down again, they just started to re-sprout and send out more side shoots. So I'll probably still get the same volume, the same yield from them as other years. These are just Gardener's Delight. Just a normal red cherry tomato, full of flavour, really nice and sweet. I have it underplanted with basil, and the smell of the basil in here is just gorgeous. More spring onions in there, gone way over to be harvested as spring onions, but you can see if you leave your spring onions in the ground, they do actually turn into bulb onions. So we'll make use of those over the winter too. Obviously those onions wouldn't store, you just use them straight from the ground. So that's 1, 2, 3 plants, 3 Gardener's Delight cherry tomato plants. And this, if you have never grown tomatoes before and you really want to start, this is the variety I recommend, and this is the reason people who grow their own tomatoes say they will never buy tomatoes in the shop again. This little orange tomato is called Sun Gold, and I'm telling you, it's like eating grapes. They are so sweet, so full of flavour. Every gardener who grows tomatoes will grow this variety because it is just absolutely gorgeous and so sweet. And even people who might not like tomatoes will probably like this variety. I have 2 of those plants here. I have more in the polytunnel, but again, I'm only growing for fresh eating here, so there's only so many we can eat fresh. So just 2 plants. You can see the other truss coming down there. Here I have yellow pear, another nice flavoured tomato. And again, tomatoes when they're harvested, when the sun is shining and they're warm, you'll never get tomatoes from the shop that taste like them. No matter how expensive you buy, how expensive the tomatoes you buy in the shop, and sun ripened, vine ripened, doesn't matter. When you harvest your own tomatoes, the taste difference is just, it's night and day. So I have 3 larger varieties in at the back. One is called Azoichka. It holds up really well to colder temperatures. Let's see if I can get in there to show you. It's a yellow slicer. Gets quite large. There, it's hiding in there. I actually have some here ready to harvest. Quite a big size. And I have preserved these as well before, and they're particularly nice to use for making curries when you've preserved them, because of their nice yellow colour. They keep curries nice and yellow too. Down here I have a pink oxheart. So they grow to a bit of a point at the bottom. Another large variety. Can be used for slicing, and they can also be used for preserving. I have preserved these before as well. See, they have a nice heart shape. And that's them fully ripe there, ready for harvesting too. Pink ox heart. And then one more variety. Another slicer. Absolutely delicious in a sandwich. If you just have tomatoes and salt on a sandwich, this is the tomato to go for. Marmande, it's called. Now I have a few other plants growing in here. Maybe not, I mean the theme of this year's garden was late. We've had lockdowns and maybe self-imposed lockdowns as well as government lockdowns. They've kind of kept us quiet the last 2 years. So really what it meant was, because we had nowhere to go, all the time was spent in the garden. But of course this year is different, thankfully. We're able to get out and about, go so many places. Everything, all the activities are back on for the kids. But as a result then, I felt that everything was later getting planted this year. There's a melon growing in there. And you can actually grow melons in Ireland if you pick the right varieties. This variety was actually given to me by a friend, so I can't remember the name of this variety. There is another variety called Emer. It's an F1 variety, can grow. Obviously you need a greenhouse or a polytunnel just to get the right heat. We can produce melons. In at the back here I have some pepper plants. Now these were the leftovers. My main pepper crop is in the polytunnel, but I had these few stragglers left over, so I stuck them in here. I think that's 2 jalapeno plants just up there, here, and I think this is cayenne. And I have lots more cayenne growing in the polytunnel. The cayenne I will allow to ripen. I will then dehydrate them. I have a dehydrator, and turn them into cayenne powder. That's another cayenne plant there, and there's another melon in there at the back. Hasn't really produced much. I don't see any fruit production on it, but again, these were the stragglers that were left till late. I have more melons in the polytunnel too, and butternut squash. So over here in the corner is a cucumber plant. I have actually pulled out cucumber plants. I had 2 cucumber plants planted at the front here, so they've gone over at this stage. They were starting to get powdery mildew and they were just ready for pulling out. This is a later one that's planted, and it's good to do that when you can with certain varieties, to stagger the planting so you get production over a longer period. There is a cucumber in here somewhere. Soon be ready for harvesting, I think. Let me see. Yeah, there's one there. This variety is called La Diva. They do grow smaller cucumbers, since there's really only 2 of us in the house that eat cucumbers. I figured it was better to grow a variety that's smaller so that we're not wasting anything. And more basil over here in the corner too. A couple of different varieties. I think at the back there is the Genovese, which is the normal Italian basil, and then these varieties here at the front are like a lettuce leaf basil. I think it's basil napolitano. Very high production, as you can see, huge big leaves. You could nearly use these for lettuce leaf wraps. They're that big. And plenty of flavour, maybe not just as good a flavour as from like a Genovese variety or Italian variety, but very, very good substitute. And then in pots here, I have another variety of basil. I have just harvested this back. This is lime flavoured basil. Very, very tasty. My first year growing it. I've used it to make iced tea. They're also really good in mojitos as well. Not that I drink too many mojitos, but when I had lime basil, I just had to make lime mojitos, and they were delish. So the polytunnel is or the greenhouse is watered using this oh gosh, this hose. I can't think of the name of it now. It's a hose-link hose. I'll put it up on the screen when I remember the name of it. As soon as the camera goes on, Katrina starts forgetting the names of objects. A soaker hose. Yeah, it's a soaker hose. So this is kind of half buried in the bed. You can see it there, so it snakes all along there. There's another one, another part of it there. It's all one hose, one length, 50 metre length. So it's in, there's 3 strands of it running along the whole polytunnel. So I just connect up the hose to that, and that waters this entire bed in the greenhouse. It's very handy. This is my wee potting bench here, and all the accoutrements I've gathered up over the years, and my heated propagator, an essential bit of kit when you're growing in Ireland if you're fanatical about growing like I am. It's an essential piece of equipment. And again, these can be bought from different retailers, maybe Quick Crop, definitely Quick Crop, and maybe Fruit Hill Farm as well would be the suppliers that would come to mind to buy these from. Now this is probably the biggest one you can buy, and I'd still be stuck for space in the early spring. So, like with everything, when you're picking a greenhouse, build it bigger than you think you'll need. When you're building a shed, build it bigger than you think you'll need. And when you're buying a propagator, buy one bigger than you think you'll need. You'll always fill it. So there's the plants in it at the minute are just remnants from the spring and summer plantings. And I'll soon be dumping it out. Well, I'll not be planting anything or sowing anything for the propagator until maybe January time. Usually I start with onions, followed quickly by chilies and peppers, and then tomatoes maybe mid-March. So there, the chilies and onions require the longest growing time, so they're the ones to get started with first. So that's the vegetable garden part. We'll bring you out to the wild vegetable garden now next.